I guess I was only ever able to find this out given the variety of games I generally play, but it's apparent to me that some developers think it's perfectly okay to have completely and utterly skewed balancing decisions in a multiplayer game. Yeah, I know the medic in TF2 is overpowered by design and how it helps the game flow due to his unique ability to break stalemates with an invulnerability buff. However, my problem regarding balance is design choices when it comes to making things overpowered enough to throw game balance out the window, or bad to the point of being unplayable. I know I've made my opinion on SoulCalibur VI's balancing quite clear, and while I do agree that the roster is mostly balanced, the few outliers in that regard are my main source of annoyance when playing the game. Yes, you've probably heard me talk about how they made room for Haohmaru by making Geralt bad, but people seem to think that's perfectly fine. Even going as far as to saying, good riddance to a base game character when you can just buy the DLC replacement. On the opposite end of things, you have Song Mina, a rather simple to use character that requires no effort to win with her, since she has received a heck ton of buffs, and the few nerfs she got were little more than a light slap on the wrist. I know people would cite Ivy for the scantily clad waifu appeal, but here's the big difference between Mina and Ivy. You have to work for your wins with Ivy, and who has time for that when your pants are halfway down your legs? Again, people are okay with Mina being overpowered because Coomer bait. I wouldn't be making this video if SoulCalibur VI was the only game where I had problems with the game being unbalanced on purpose. Enter Killing Floor 2. Yes, I can understand that a co-op horde shooter also needs balancing, but I don't think I'd call what 2021's balance changes to Killing Floor 2 as balancing a game. To those unfamiliar, the development team behind Killing Floor 2 decided it'd be a good idea to nerf the Berserker because of how little effort it takes to not die. I can understand why they felt that the tank class is too tanky for a balanced game, since some games often devolve into Berserkers being the last player standing and are kiting everything while taking way too long to kill things. Is what I would say if they didn't overstep their boundaries with the Berserker nerfs, only to release a DLC weapon that is powerful enough to make up for said nerfs. My problem with the game is that they increase the amount of effort required to do well with the Berserker, only for a subsequent update to allow players to pay real-world money to reduce the amount of effort required to do well with the Berserker. Similarly to my SoulCalibur VI example, the Killing Floor 2 community seems oddly okay with one perk needing to rely on DLC despite everyone else being perfectly capable of using their base game offerings. Also keep in mind that on higher difficulties, you generally want a tank and medic as your keep everyone alive guys, because surprise surprise, the best damage dealers in your team deal 0 damage if they die. And it's the Berserker and medic's job to not let that happen, but I digress. To summarize, the game balance as of late is definitely favoring how the game is monetized, and when you try and critique the delicate relationship between game balance and the need to sell a product, Tripwire Interactive's community moderators and sycophants will not like that. At all. To the point where they will threaten banning you over how you feel that the game shouldn't be balanced around pay-to-win business practices. And then Killing Floor 2's community acts surprised when 2022's paid weapons turn out to have similar pay-to-win elements attached to them. Ignore the fact that they've endorsed Berserker's pay-to-win elements. Somehow, this is not the worst example of intentional imbalancing I've encountered. That job goes to... Full disclosure, I actually find this game to be more fun than Chivalry 2 in times where people actually play the medieval PvP game like a medieval game. Unfortunately, the reality of the situation is that there's definitely going to be more people who care about squeezing out wins with the least amount of effort as humanly possible than they do care about enjoying the game's skill-based melee system and keeping archer headcounts to a minimum. From what I've seen of Bannerlord throughout the course of its early access periods, some factions are clearly better or worse than others, and the food chain in that regard has reached a point where it has remained static. I could give my personal tier list for this game, but Empire has consistently been the worst faction in this game since 2020 that I'm honestly ready to believe that this is intentional. Doesn't help that there hasn't been a meaningful balance patch in spite of the skewed faction tiering, but that won't stop players from nodding their head and going, yep, that's perfectly balanced. Unlike SoulCalibur VI and Killing Floor 2, I fail to see a justification on why Empire and Sturgeon need to suck, because those two games can hide behind the thin veil of, we need to sell DLC. I may not like Geralt being a bad character in SoulCalibur VI, or Berserker being pay to win in Killing Floor 2, but at least those imbalancing decisions serve a purpose, even if I don't like it. Bannerlord's imbalancing is just there because TaleWorlds seems to have a specific vision in mind that just so happens to include skewed unit and faction balance. In fact, I wonder if TaleWorlds' intentional imbalancing and the lack of sane people in regards to said imbalancing has to do with why more people are playing Chivalry 2 instead. Anyways, I guess that's my rant. But seriously though, I can't be the only one who seems to have a problem with games with terrible balancing decisions that are done so on purpose. In fact, if anyone can name examples of online games where certain classes or characters are intentionally game-breaking or unplayable, be sure to share your experiences on the comment section.